On August 7th, 2025, the astronaut Jim Lovell died. And I don't think it really made a lot of headlines, unfortunately. But no, he was a great guy. I mean, most people have probably heard of him because of the movie, Apollo 13. I certainly did. I didn't see it at the movies when it came out, but you know, we definitely had it on video, and I've just watched it many times. And you know, a lot of people don't like movies where about real history and, you know, they get facts wrong or appearances wrong or whatever. But you know, I thought Apollo 13 was a great film. Ron Howard did a great job with that movie, and I think it still holds up. But anyway, like I said, you know, I saw the movie. It came out the year I turned 11, and you know, I probably had it by the time I was 12. And you know, it just, that movie had such great special effects, and you know, it just, you really felt just how dangerous it was to be on that mission when you know, when they had the accident and everything. And it really affected me. You know, I would go into space if the opportunity arose, but you know, I had never wanted to be an astronaut. But you know, it's just definitely something I like reading about. And when I was 12, you know, for Christmas of 1995, I think. So no, I would have been 11. But you know, I got the K'NEX Big Ball Factory, and you know, so I had a lot of K'NEX blocks. And so after I built the Big Ball Factory and took it apart, I often made rocket ships out of it. And I tried as best as I could with those blocks to recreate the Apollo 13. You know, not just the service module, the command module, and the LEM, but you know, also all the components from when it lifted off. And you know, that was like over 5 feet tall too. So you know, that was really big and just a lot of fun to build. And you know, it's just an example of how the movie affected me. But you know, I read not all of it, but some of the book. I mean, after his astronaut career, Jim Lovell wrote a book called Lost Moon, and that was the book that Ron Howard based Apollo 13 on. And you know, like I said, I didn't read all of it, but I had it. And you know, I remember reading some of it. But that was a long time ago when I was a kid. You know, now that I'm a father, you know, I'm raising a family by myself. More recently, I read on Jim Lovell's Wikipedia page when he was on Apollo 8, which it was before Neil landed on the moon, but he was on Apollo 8 and it orbited the moon. And you know, this was meant to lead up to Apollo 11. And well, anyway, he Frank Borman and their third member, William Anders, they all took turns reading from the book of Genesis on Christmas Eve. That's when this orbit was. And you know, they did it as they orbited the moon. And you know, anyone who's familiar with the book of Genesis can, you know, really understand the significance of that. You know, just reading about the creation of the world as they you know, take their first steps, you know, toward the moon and learning more about this world. But it's I thought that was really cool. And so on Christmas Eve of December 2023, I took like, you know, 5 or 10 minutes to read some of the book of Genesis on that night. And you know, I've always meant to read the Bible from cover to cover. I've just never done that. I've always identified as a Catholic, but I've never just read the whole Bible. But you know, I just think that was a really cool thing to do. And you know, just now that I'm older, it you know, in the times we live in, this modern times and the age of the internet and all that, it just feels like there's more of a disconnect between faith and science. And you know, to read about astronauts reading the Bible, you know, that feels like from another time. And you know, I guess it was before I was born, certainly. But you know, to put it in perspective, like I when Brea was really little, my first daughter, you know, I had a photo of Christina Koch taped to her wall, and you know, she may become the first astronaut, the first woman astronaut to land on to walk on the moon. You know, and but you know, you read about the personal lives of you know, celebrities and other people on, you know, like Wikipedia and stuff, and you know, in their personal, I always go to their personal life section, you know, to see if they have religious beliefs or whatever. And you know, I don't think there's any listed for them, or at least for her. But, and you know, I'm not picking on her, but I'm just making a point of how you know, the astronauts of the past seem like they were a lot different than the astronauts of today. And you know, when I think of Jim Lovell, you know, like I said, most people are only familiar with him from the Apollo 13 movie. But you know, there was a part of the Lost Moon book that where I forget what the gift was, but it was like a Ming stole or something. Lovell had it delivered to his wife, Marilyn Lovell, you know, because, you know, the Apollo 8 mission was, you know, during Christmas, so, you know, he wasn't there. But, you know, he did that. And, you know, I think it was like while they were on their way to church or something, the family, when it was delivered to her. So, but, you know, they were churchgoers. And, you know, Marilyn died in 2023. But you know, like I was saying, when I think of Jim Lovell and the time he came from, it seems like he embodies the American man. Just working, he was in the military, raised a family, and all these kind of values that seem like they're getting more lost. They disappear further into the past as time goes on, and that's a bad thing. But, and I guess the only other thing that's really worth mentioning is, you know, I have a sister, and Samantha, and the actor who played the older son, he's not pictured in this family photo. It's just Barbara, Jeffrey, and Susan Lovell. But what was it? I can't think of his real name. But you know, he's shown in the movie. He was played by the actor Max Elliott Slade, and I don't know if my sister had a crush on him or something, but she just would say the name Max Elliott Slade in a real, like, funny, demeaning way, and I don't know, it was stupid. But you know, it's just something I remember about us when we were kids. But anyway, you know, that's it. You know, Jim Lovell's no longer with us, and it's a shame, you know, he didn't live to see, you know, in 2021, 2022, it seemed like, you know, maybe in the next few years we would go to the moon, and, you know, we're midway through 2025, and it still hasn't happened yet. But, you know, it's a shame he didn't live to see it, and, you know, it just would have been good if he had. He deserved to see it, and especially because he didn't get to walk on the moon himself. But, you know, he's gone now, and he's with his wife and with Jesus, and, you know, I think he lived a great life, and, you know, it meant a lot to learn about him, you know, through the movie and the book, and I'm sure we'll learn more about him on Wikipedia and all those things. But God bless you, Jim Lovell.